Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the latest edition of the No Holden Back podcast. My name is Luke Holden, currently sitting here with my dad, Ben Holden, and our special guest today, Eric Law, PLL Atlas Lacrosse Club Attackman. How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm super excited to be on.
Yeah, it's good to have you, bud. And, I've done a few of your games over the years, which we'll get to. But more importantly, we want to kind of get your story. And for those that don't know, you're a local guy, Denver, you're a Colorado guy. And you started playing at a young age, because of the influence of your brothers, right?
I did, yeah. I started playing lacrosse, officially on a team probably when I was about 6 years old. And I have two older brothers, and my oldest brother is 7 years older than me. And we were always a big baseball family because of my dad. So we all started playing it. And then he had a couple friends from school that were playing lacrosse. And he was getting so bored with baseball, of the standing around, and saw his friends playing lacrosse, so wanted to give it a try. And then really kind of ever since then, we've never kind of really put the sticks down. And it's kind of funny, the first time I actually played on a team, I have another brother who's older than me, who's a couple years older. And his team, for one of the practices, was missing a few players. And my mom had constantly asked, like, hey, can my youngest son play on the team? Like, he can handle it. He has two older brothers. He's fine with getting hit. Like, knock him around, do whatever you want to do to him. And the coach was like, no, he's too little. He's too small. And so I was like, all right, fine. And then one game came when they needed a couple extra players. And the coach came over to my mom. I was like, does he want to come play? Like, we need help. She's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And then I've kind of just been playing kind of ever since then. And the coach let me stay on the team ever since after that. And that's kind of how I got my start.
So you mentioned your dad. Was your dad a former baseball player, or was he just into baseball so much?
He was a baseball player, like nothing crazy. Like, he played through high school, but we actually learned not until a couple years after we started playing that he also played a little bit of lacrosse in high school, back when it was still, I think there was only like 3 or 4 high schools that were playing in Colorado at the time. He played for like a couple years and always loved it. He admits that he wasn't any good. I think that's what
at least he's honest.
Yeah, because whenever we would toss around with them, like, you watch him throw, you're like, yeah, you weren't very good, were you, Dad? But it's fun. But he's always been a big supporter of us and always kind of like a coach and telling us and kind of helping us what to do. But so my dad and mom are always big sports people. So I mean, we've played anything and everything growing up, which I think added to a lot of all of our successes.
And growing up in Colorado at the time, lacrosse has gotten a lot bigger out there in recent years. But, when you were growing up, how different was the lacrosse scene in Colorado at the time for you?
Oh, you wouldn't even imagine. So when I first started playing those first couple of years when I was growing up, I believe by the time that I was in 8th grade, when I first started, so like when I was in elementary school, I think there was really only 5 or 6 different organizations, and they would only have basically one team per age group, or one team for like 3rd and 4th graders, 5th and 6th graders, and 7th, 8th graders. So that was just kind of like the mix and mingle that they would put together. By the time that I was in 8th grade, there was easily probably 50 different organizations, and each of those organizations probably had 2 or 3 teams at each age group. So it kind of grew big time. And then another big one was when I was a freshman in high school, there was 60 high school sanctioned teams. And by the time I graduated in 2009, I believe there was over 100. So a huge boom in just a little amount of time that it really took off. And even today, it just keeps growing and growing, which is super fun to see.
Yeah, it's we're in Michigan, and it's growing here like crazy too. You might know this, Eric. I mean, I had heard a few years ago that lacrosse was the fastest growing sport. Not only, I mean, we know how popular it is in Canada, of course, but it was the fastest growing sport in North America. Do you know any numbers or in regard to that today?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know that lacrosse has I heard this stat just the other day, that it has the highest retention rate of all sports right now, which is huge. Thinking about, all the stuff that's coming up with football and the safety precautions with head injuries and hockey, and that it has the highest retention rate is huge. I know lacrosse is still at that point where it is tough to get into some parts of the country and some parts of the world because of the accessibility and the high financial barrier that it does have. But I know that there's a bunch of programs throughout the country, and lacrosse is doing a much better job of bringing it to places that it's never been before, because I think one of the great things about the sport is anyone can play it. You know, you can be the tallest guy on your team, or you can be the shortest guy on your team. You can still be just as effective, or, you know, you can be the fastest guy, or even the slowest guy on the team can still be just as effective as that fastest guy. So it's really kind of a sport for everyone. But seeing more kids play it every day, love to see it because they're running around and getting a workout in and smiling on their face. So the more we can just keep growing the sport, the more popular it's going to get. And it's a true sport, I think, that everyone can love, no matter what your age is. It's a fun sport to watch, and it's even more fun sport to play.
You have anything?
Oh yeah, I got plenty of questions. So get us to the point. So get us to the point, excuse me, where you get into high school, and when did things start to kind of, you know, go away where you realized or felt you were going to have a shot to play at the next level, Eric? How did that process go for you?
Yeah, so going into high school, actually kind of going back to what I said before, I was a big baseball player. So springtime, I was on a super competitive baseball team and then was playing lacrosse at the same time. So playing both of those in the spring was a juggle for the longest of times, and kind of became till like 7th grade, beginning of 8th grade. It was kind of like, all right, like you kind of need to make your decision of what you're going to follow. And I liked baseball. I loved playing it because I loved my teammates, but it wasn't a sure like passion of mine. Like I didn't love going to practice every day, like that kind of stuff. You know, like I loved hitting BP. That was by far my favorite thing ever to do. But I knew it because I loved going to practice every single day. Like I loved just playing in the backyard by myself, of shooting and playing wall ball, and going to, like, I looked forward to going to practice and competing every single day of lacrosse. And I knew that was kind of what it was. And I also think I knew I was better at it. And I think that was also a key part of it, is I saw more of a future in that. And I have to give a lot of thanks to my freshman year in high school. My coach was Brian Langtree, big time stud in Colorado at the time, was playing for the Colorado Mammoth and the Outlaws, was like one of the biggest names of the game. And he came in and kind of took me underneath his wing, and I needed it because at that time when I was a freshman in high school, I believe I was 5'2", 100 pounds. Like I was a small kid, and he took me under his wing. He put his faith in me. I was able to start on the varsity team for all 4 years, even with that year. And he kind of taught me a lot of skills that still stick with me today, of, you know, being that small, I couldn't really be a guy that carried the ball a lot. So I kind of had to find seams. And I think that's helped my game a lot. And it didn't really hit me ever. Like, it was obviously always a dream of mine to play big time Division I lacrosse, and always wanted to do that. And that was my dream, to go play lacrosse back east and show that Colorado had the talent that we could do it. And it really wasn't in my mind, or like knew that it could happen, until kind of like my junior or senior year, that I started to get some interest from some schools. And then I knew that I kept falling in love more and more with the game every single season that I had. And the more I kept playing with it, I was addicted to getting better and like bettering my skills myself. And my high school team, we were always really good. We were always like one of the top 4 teams or top 5 teams, but we never got over that hump of winning a state championship. And that was my goal with a couple of my best friends that we had, was, you know, we're going to leave Arapahoe, my high school, with a championship. Yeah. And thankfully we were able to do that my senior year, which was, I think, maybe one of my proudest accomplishments, just because of spending 4 years with the same core group of guys, working every single day to work to this goal, and then finally get it at the end was something super special. But I didn't really know that next level was really opportunity until kind of you're faced with it. And then even when you get there, you're like, do I belong here? It's like, especially even when I went out to Salisbury my freshman year, there was 1 or 2 other guys on the team that were older from me, that were from Colorado, so it helped put it on the map. But every other kid from my class was from Baltimore or from Philly, or, you know, those hotbeds where it's like, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to stack up with them. It's like, I'm just going to go work as hard as I can and kind of see what happens.
And take us through some of your time at Salisbury. And for those that don't know about Salisbury and how great of a program they've had in lacrosse, they're one of the best Division III programs, in my opinion, in all of lacrosse. Obviously, they're out in Maryland. And just take us through some of that time and some of the things you learned while being there. I
can't, even though it was a short stint that I had there, and I was only there for 1 year, it was an eye-opening, incredible experience, and I would never trade it for the world. Coach Berkman, I still can't say enough high praises about him as a coach. I mean, his record of championships and win-loss percentage is the way it is because of how good of a coach he really is. He was the one that stayed on me and recruited me for the longest time and really showed a lot of interest in me. And that's why I ended up going to Salisbury when a bunch of other schools kind of were flaking out on me and telling me that I was going to be a practice player. And he told me I could come there and, I was going to work my butt off, but I was going to be a part of some really special teams. And that was one of the biggest things I learned from Coach Berkman is how much work you need to be putting in off of just the practice field. And I always enjoyed working more and like doing more outside of practice, but he had something about being able to pull that out of his team and everyone in the whole program. It was always called your edge workouts. Like, what are you doing to get your edge above the competition? So, we would have shooting practices in the morning, practices at night. And I was like, well, what are you doing during the day outside of just classes that is going to separate you from, the number 2, number 3 ranked teams? And also, like, how is that going to separate you from the guys who are starting in front of you? Unfortunately, I believe it was the 4th game of the year, was just starting to get on the field a whole lot more. With 2 minutes left in the game, scored a goal and broke my collarbone on the same play. Was out for 10 weeks. And during that time, it was kind of one of those reflections, like, I'm loving this. Like, I love the team. I love the coaching staff. But if there was a way that I could be closer to home, enjoy kind of what Colorado has to offer outside of lacrosse, just because I realized if lacrosse was taken away from me for the next 3 years that I'm here, would I be as happy as I could be? And realized I had another opportunity to be able to come back home. But I was able to play in the national championship game with Salisbury. Unfortunately, we lost that game, but I got to say I played in a national championship, which was pretty incredible. And I don't think they missed me much after I transferred, knowing that they won 3 straight national championships those next 3 years. So still get in contact with some of those guys and Coach Berkman, but can't say enough good things about Salisbury.
That's great stuff, Eric. So you mentioned earlier, you talked about your dream and all that and getting to go back home. So how did that all work out, and how did you ultimately get back home to play for the Pioneers of Denver?
Yeah, so during that time that I broke my collarbone, I actually have 2 of my best friends growing up were playing at DU at the time. And they just kept telling me how much fun they were having and how much they thought it'd be a great fit for me and kind of filled it in. So they kind of put the idea in the back of my head. And then I had played for Coach Brown in the summer times for a club program. So I always had a really good relationship with him and knew that I really liked their style of play and felt like it helped my game out too. But kind of rolled the dice and took a chance. And when I got back from Salisbury, reached out to Coach Tierney, met with him, and we met, and he was even straight up saying like, yeah, we think that you could be on the team, but the way it earns is you're going to kind of have to be a walk-on. Like we can't guarantee a spot or anything, but you're going to have to come like earn your way onto this team. And, I thought about it a lot, discussed it. And from the moment I stepped on campus and met with some of the guys on the team, I knew it was going to be a good fit. So kind of took a chance on myself and enrolled in school, got there. And then on the first day of walk-on tryouts, he came up to me about midway through practice and asked what number I wanted to be. So it was just a great fit for me, not only on the field and playing wise, but also socially. I fit in great with the guys there, and it was probably the best decision I've ever made in my life. Met lifelong friends and has just kind of been a part of it ever since.
So the first time I remember hearing and seeing you play was the game at Villanova 2011, I believe it was, in the tournament. And they had Carol Lunas. I'm sure they had other guys, but he was like the marquee guy I remember from that game. Talk to us about, going through that and the experience of playing. Bill was on with us earlier, and I have great respect for Bill, and one of the giants of the game, obviously, as we know. But the experience of going through those 3 years at Denver, it sounded too like, I'm doing some other reading, you played all over the place. You were kind of like a Swiss Army knife in the beginning, right?
Yeah. First off, that Villanova game, that was my sophomore year, my first year there, is up in my top 5 favorite games of all time.
Why is that?
Hosting, it was the first time DU's ever hosted a playoff game. So the first time a playoff game has ever gone west of the Mississippi. It was the first time that our crowd was completely sold out, that they had to sell extra tickets on the hill behind one of the goals. So it was packed. It was loud. And it was like the first real, we beat Duke earlier in the year. That kind of solidified us as a top team. And so we were coming to the playoffs, and we were down at half of that game, and then came back out, and Mark Matthews had two of the best goals I've ever seen in my life, right in front of me, which was pretty cool. I still have vivid memories of that, and winning that game was just super special. But going back to the point where I did play pretty much every position you possibly could on the offensive end once I first got there. Is that sophomore year when I got there, they already had their starting attack. So, right from day one, they kind of told me to find my way on the field was going to be through the midfield. So played midi for most of my sophomore year. And then Todd Baxter, senior, got hurt at the end of the year. So I came in to attack for that game. That was the first game that I started at attack for. And then junior year was kind of like the guy that was supposed to be the off ball, the voice of the offense. We had Mark Matthews and Alex Demopoulos, who had been 4-year starters and All-Americans. So my job was kind of just to ride hard and get them extra possessions and kind of stay out of the way and get those guys open as much as we could, which I loved. I loved playing with those guys. And then my senior year, they kind of handed the keys over to me on offense and kind of let me be the quarterback of the offense and the guy that runs it from X. So I also think all those kind of experiences definitely helped me in my game today, and it's kind of shaped the player I am. But that Villanova game, that was one of the most special games. And as a class, we still talk about all the time that if we could go back, that would definitely be one of the games that we'd replay.
I do remember how packed it was in there, and it was nuts. I do remember that. And you mentioned Matt Brown earlier, and I know Luke talked with Coach Tierney about that. The mind that Matt has in that regard, the mental part of the game, Eric, how much did Matt help you with that?
Oh, an incredible amount. And like I said, I was super thankful that I got to play on a club team that he was coaching when I was in high school. I kind of got a first glance into his mindset on offensive philosophies, and it really did help me in high school. And it's helped my mind as a player to kind of see where he's coming from and read it, and then just the different stuff he's able to come up with. He's not someone that's writing anything new. He's not writing, or coming up with a new set of rotations or anything like on offense. But what he's doing is he's looking at a defense, looking at their tendencies and then attacking it. And that's what makes it so impressive is, on our offense, there could be, 3 things that are happening, but the first 2 things are just completely setting up the last thing. But if you don't look at what's happening on that first play, we're going to score on the first one too. So what I learned the most and I loved about it was it's just a constant chess match. It's constantly going back and forth and just playing against the defense and reading and reacting what they're doing and putting them in uncomfortable spots. And I think of any coach or any mind, I feel like he is the best at that, is he puts his offensive players in the best spot to make the defense as uncomfortable as possible for as long as possible during a game. And just watching him take a different team year by year, but then still add in his own flair to it, with watching him even coaching the, Team Canada. He was going to be the head coach of the U19 this last World Games, and just watching him take different talents and people that have different backgrounds, but then forming and meshing them all together so they're all on the same page and working in one cohesive unit is pretty special.
And when did you think professional lacrosse was going to be an opportunity for you? When did you kind of see that door opening, per se?
Honestly, not making this up, probably not until after my first professional practice.
Wow.
I had no idea I was even going to get drafted. I remember when it was draft day for the MLL, I was actually getting ready because the next day was the Broncos versus Ravens in the 2013 playoffs. And so I was getting ready with some friends, it was going to be one of the coldest days ever. So we were getting coats, something like that. And then my phone started blowing up with messages hey, congrats, that's awesome. And I remember texting a couple people back being for what? Thanks. Yeah, congrats to you too. I didn't know what it was. And then I got a call and said that I got drafted by the Outlaws. And I was oh, that's cool. Sweet. Maybe they're doing this because it's a hometown kid, so they're just trying to gain some publicity. I didn't know. And then I actually talked to Coach Brown a couple weeks after. I was hey, do you think I actually have an opportunity to play? What do you think? And he was absolutely. You need to go for it, pursue it 100%. So I was all right. Went to my first practice, played hard. They were yeah, you did a great job. You're not going to play this week, but we're going to play you next week. And that first game was actually on the day that I graduated from college, which was super cool. So I didn't know the whole professional thing was even going to be a thing until kind of after my first game, I was like, oh, all right, maybe this is a thing I can pursue and keep doing.
June 8th, 2013. I was going to ask you about that. I mean, you
Yep.
couldn't ask for a better graduation day. You graduate, you're with your family, your friends, and then you go out and you snipe 4 goals on 4 shots. Who'd you play that day?
We played the Hamilton Nationals
Okay.
that day. So that will 100% be a day that I will remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Waking up and having graduation with all my roommates and teammates doing like grads and dads at the bar, and I was just drinking waters the whole time, and then going to the graduation ceremony, and then going and getting lunch with my parents and grandparents afterwards was super fun. And then the real fun started of getting to suit up in my first professional game. And I don't remember much from the game. I wish I did, because it was just that day was just such a blur. But was thankful that I got to play as much as I did, and somehow scored 4 goals on 4 shots, and the rest was kind of there. I remember after the game kind of being like, what just happened? Kind of like a pinch me moment. It was like I can't believe that just happened, but I'll always remember that day for sure.
In your next game, you scored 5.
Yeah, that same thing. And it was against Chesapeake. And at that time they had just won back-to-back championships. So going to that game, I was definitely nervous and had some butterflies. And if anyone remembers those teams from Chesapeake, they had Nicky Polanco and Spolina on their defense, who are 2 of like the most badass dudes that you never want to mess with ever. And I remember when I first got on there, they right before the opening face-off, they both came up behind me, like got behind my neck and said, "We're gonna effing kill you. Like, don't even think about touching the effing ball." And I was like, "Oh God, like this is going to be awful." So in that game, I was actually running around terrified for my life, just trying to run away from those guys as much as I could. And somehow it got me open, and again was able to find success and have 5 goals in that game. But a lot of that was set up from teammates. But I'll always remember that those guys just terrifying me into running around, and it actually maybe helped me a little bit more to make sure my feet were always moving.
Did you go back to him afterwards, or did you just walk off, say, "I showed him, I don't need to say anything"? What was your mentality?
Not when I was a rookie. Definitely did not say anything to those guys until maybe a couple of years afterwards. Then you can kind of start jawing back with them and giving it back to them. But I knew my place was not to say anything and just play hard at that time.
Yeah.
So how important was it to you to stay with Denver, play with them throughout your time in the MLL, and be at home and things like that around your family?
Oh, it was incredible. Being able to play 3 years of college in front of my family and extended family every game, or at home at least, and then professionally too, being able to play at Mile High Stadium, where I grew up being the biggest Broncos fan, and going out and playing on that field was super, super special. And then when you're playing in front of people that you know and love, there's just something special about it. And at that time, I started doing a lot of work with Denver City Wax and was coaching a bunch of camps in the summer. So a lot of the kids would come into the games, and then I would coach during the week, and they'd talk about how they're excited for the game, and I'd be able to see them after the game and talk to them. It's super special memories that I'll always have. And especially just my memories with the Outlaws will be something I'll cherish forever. I'm super thankful and lucky, and I'm one of the very few that had that opportunity to play in front of your hometown, and kind of like the kids that you're seeing on a daily basis, and playing in front of them is something that I didn't take for granted, and I never will.
I want to hit you on a couple more Outlaws questions, because you and I have a tie, obviously, a couple times there, but the Broncos draft, break it down for us, man. You're such a big football fan. You up for that?
I am. Yes, I am.
Bring it.
I'm actually super excited about Jerry Jeudy. I think that the fact that
I would be too.
The fact that he fell into our lap at 15, I was super excited, and talking back and forth with my family and some friends right when that draft was going. Someone even made the comment like, "Look, the Raiders are going to make a stupid decision and take just a fast wide receiver." And thankfully they did. So hopefully that one doesn't come back to bite the Broncos in the butt for years to come. But I'm super pumped. I think our draft was good. I think that we addressed a lot of the needs that the offense needed for sure. I'm still a bit questionable about the defensive end. I still think that we have some big time shoes we need to fill in our corners position. But overall, I thought we did a pretty good job, and much better in recent years' drafts.
I didn't tell him we were going to talk a little football in there.
I always talk Broncos football, that's for sure.
All right, so give me your top 3 Denver Broncos, your favorite Broncos of all time.
Ooh, top. Von Miller, Terrell Davis, and then you got to go with the man John Elway. You got to put the guys up there. If I could put a 3B, it'd definitely be Champ Bailey. Would be the other one on here. Champ was the man for so many years, and was awesome. We finally got to get him a Super Bowl in his last year, which was super special.
I always liked Fletcher, man. I like the way he played.
I like Fletcher too. And then like Steve Atwater, old school guy. And I loved Atwater because he always wore lacrosse elbow pads.
Yeah.
When he came across the middle, he would just forearm guys right in the middle of the face mask. So there's too many to name, but those top three probably have to be my favorite.
Yeah, he had a little spleen in him then, huh?
He did have a little bit of that, which I can respect.
Back to the Outlaws. So you might remember this. Luke was, I think that was 14 when you guys won the first title with the Outlaws.
Yep, 14.
14. Yep. So you may remember this. So it was so hot that day that we must have shown on CBS Sports Network, we must have shown the field and the ice about 100 times. Playing in that game, man, what was that like?
I remember coming out for warm-ups, and when we came back in, I had felt like we just played a game because of the heat and like not only sweating so much, but like I was already like, my body was already like exhausted from everything out there. So I remember trying to get as much fluids in as possible. We were a bit older team that year. We had some incredible legends on our team of Lee Zink, Jesse Schwartzman, Anthony Kelly, John Grant Jr., guys that I've looked up to forever that when I even get to say that I played with them was pretty special and pretty incredible. But I just remember that. I remember it being so incredibly hot and then us going down pretty big at the beginning of the game and then having to keep clawing our way back. And then thank goodness that the sun went down and it kind of passed in the second half because I feel like it kind of gave us a little extra life and a little extra energy. But you're right. I remember that being one of the hottest games that I've definitely ever played in. And I remember, I'm pretty sure there was a couple guys on the team that went through like 4 or 5 undershirts in that game. And just at halftime, I remember guys taking their shorts and literally wringing them out in the shower and like making me disgusted just looking and could smell all the disgusting sweat that was coming off of it.
Yeah, that was a heck of a game. And I know there's a name that you mentioned in there that my son wants to bring up with you that you said just in that response. Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, so John Grant Jr., of course, we all know how great he is as a lacrosse player, some of the crazy things he's done, some of the crazy goals he scored. What are some of the things that you learned from him playing with him as a teammate?
How to be a great teammate at all times, like even when you're winning, even when you're losing, and how to gel as a team. You know, a lot of the chemistry when you're playing professional lacrosse, half of it comes from on the field, yes, but then also half of it comes off the field and just getting, grabbing a meal together after a game, going and having dinner and having a couple of drinks together. That really brings a team together, not having guys split up and go do their own thing, but really making sure everyone's together as one. I think that was one of the biggest lessons that he taught us in 2014 that got the Outlaws over the hump was, we kind of struggled the last few games of the year going into the playoffs there. And he was the one that kind of rallied the team, was like, hey, like this isn't a time to point fingers and separate. This is the time that we all need to come together. So, if you have plans after the game, stop them because we're all going to go get dinner together and hang out and make sure we get together. And from that point on, that team was incredibly strong and everyone wanted to play even more together because that was probably the most talented team that I'd been on. And so to have him kind of bring everyone in together was pretty impressive. And then the other thing he's taught me is just, you don't need to be fast. You don't need to be, the quickest a guy to be able to still get it done because if you have a great stick, it's going to be able to make you a great player for a long, long time. And funny story about Junior is the first game I ever played with them, they had just lost, the Mammoth had just lost their playoff game the night before. He flew back and didn't know if he was going to play because we had a Sunday afternoon game in the beginning of the MLL season. And he didn't know if he was going to play. He came into the locker room and like, yeah, you're playing. He was like, yeah, I want to play. Let's do this. And so I remember going up and shaking his hand and just being like, hey, Mr. Junior, my name's Eric. Like, I'm going to be playing with you. And he looked at me and he's like, yeah, I know who you are. Don't ever call me that again.
You made him feel old, didn't you?
It was first one of those awkward times. I was like, I don't know if I call him Mr. Junior, if I call him John Grant Jr., like, what should I call him? And he was like, don't ever do that again.
Yeah.
But it's super thankful. I've been able to have, I can't say enough amazing things about John. As obviously everyone knows how good he is as a player, but as a person, we became super close friends. Respect the hell out of the way he also is a great coach at Air Force Academy right now and leading them to great things. But I'm very fortunate that I have a personal relationship, and we still text often, and to be able to call him a friend is even more important than when I got to call him a teammate.
That's awesome. Now, if my memory serves me right, it was Jeremy Sieverts that scored. It was late in that game, right? That semi we were talking about earlier, correct?
Yep, it was.
So you get that goal, you go on. That was your first championship, correct? So take us through that, and what are the highlights? What do you remember from winning that one in 14?
Yeah, that one in 14, man. I remember we get down there to Atlanta, another incredibly hot, humid day. But thankfully we felt like we were ready for it from the week before.
Yeah.
Type of thing. We were playing against a Rochester team that was, we had lost to twice that year, and that they had kind of had our number for the past couple of years of coming and kind of being like our Achilles heel and kind of taking it to us. And the game started that way, where they went up. I think they were up 4 or 5 goals at half, and then we kind of came into the locker room, and we had the leadership on that team was through the roof. Lee Zink is one of the best leaders ever been around. Anthony Kelly and Junior, they all kind of stepped up at halftime and just kind of said like, hey, like, this is the last chance we have to play together. Why not leave it all out? Like, everyone just go all out. Just no one needs to do anything crazy or do anything more than they need to, and just come out and just play it. And we came out in that third quarter, scored a couple goals, got some momentum, and then thankfully Junior went into championship John Grant Jr. mode and kind of put the team on his back and scored 3 goals in the fourth quarter, one behind the back that got everyone super jacked up. I know there's video of me behind the goal jumping as high as I can, and as I'm landing, you can see my leg cramp. So I'm like trying to like hobble over to him and congratulate him once I'm cramping. But then, that game was a huge emotional win, not for just all those guys on the team, but also the organization. I mean, at that point, I think the organization had been around for 9 years, and they've gone to 8 championship games or something crazy like that, but were never able to get over the hump. And a lot of those guys were on those teams that could never quite do it. So seeing their facial expressions and like the relief they had after the game in the locker room, you could tell that they could finally like relax and put all that stuff behind them and just be excited to win.
2 years later, you guys go on another run. And the game in Connecticut, that was, I don't know what game was hotter, the 14 semifinal or the one in 16. What stands out from that game against New York in 16?
I think that 16 game takes the cake for hottest game I have ever played in my entire life. That was a crazy game and just crazy year. I mean, we were so bad at the beginning of the year, like 2-6, worst team in the league. And then all of a sudden kind of just caught fire and kind of started playing for ourselves. I think a lot of the times at the beginning of the year, we were worried about what other teams are doing, and then kind of said, screw it. We're just going to make teams worry about us now. And kind of got hot, got some momentum, and kept it rolling. And then, oh my God, that game in 2016 in Connecticut was so ridiculously hot that I remember at halftime, guys had to take ice bags and put it underneath their armpits and their heads because they were getting so hot. And then I remember at the end of the game, I'm pretty sure a couple of us even were having some like, not heat stroke, but like heat symptoms where I couldn't sweat anymore and I was just getting the chills. I was that hot. And so had to hop in a cold shower and take a cold bath for about 15 minutes. But that game was a super back and forth game. And Jack Kelly, I remember him just standing on his head with, I think it was like 4 or 5 point blank saves that he had on Drew Westerfolt and Rob Pannell that started some huge momentum swings for us and kind of got us through to that championship game.
Well, as we put a cap on the championship for the Outlaws, so you get MVP in that one. So that one has to be, you mentioned earlier the Villanova game's in your top 5. This one's probably number 1, I'm guessing. I don't know, but where does it rank and what stands out from that game, Eric?
Yeah, that one's definitely in the top 5 too. I think just because of how crazy that game was. First at the start of the game, beautiful day, doesn't look like anything's going to happen. And then the Machine are stomping us. I'm pretty sure it was like 9-2 or 9-3 or something when the first rainstorm came. And thankfully it did. I think it was a 90-minute rain delay that dumped water, like nothing we'd ever seen. And in the locker room, we all figured it was probably going to get pushed back because, like, there's no way they're going to have us come out here. But everyone's like, well, if they do, like, I guess we'll go have fun and play in the puddles and kind of enjoy it for what it is. And then we come back out, go on a little bit of run, and then they go on another run and pull it within I think they were up 8 that time when we go into halftime, and then come back out. And I remember just talking to the team right before we went and played and said, hey, like, this is the last time that we get to play lacrosse for 7 months. So lay it on the line. We're playing in the, like, mud, dive around, have fun with it, just like we're playing in the backyard with your friends. Like, let's just have fun. Like, we can all take a deep breath and let's just relax. And I don't know how that worked, but it did. And we all kind of came out and kind of relaxed a little bit more and started playing the way we did. And then things started falling our way. And I just remember that game being one of the craziest things I've ever experienced before. And that last play is still blacked out on it, so I don't remember it. And so it's funny seeing replays. I'm like, oh, I guess that happened because when Jeremy Sieverts wound up, I definitely thought he was going to shoot it, which I think is a good thing because then all I think about was just trying to get a rebound, and then saw the ball coming and reactions just kind of took over to catch it and then get it off as quickly as I could. And I'm glad it went in, and we were able to be the winners instead of on the loser side on that one.
So I want to kind of take things up to currently what's going on in the PLL. Last year was, of course, the inaugural season. Your current teammate, Paul Rabel, had announced, last year we're starting a new league. The PLL is going to happen. What was the transition like going from Major League Lacrosse to Premier League Lacrosse?
Yeah, it was a super tough decision. I was one of the last ones to kind of switch over because of how much the Outlaws had meant to me and what they had done for me and for my career. So that was a super tough decision going back and forth between the two, but ultimately saw what Paul was building and kind of the seriousness behind it and the legitimacy that he had with sponsors and a TV deal and being able to offer guys full-time pay and health insurance and kind of take the sport to the next level. And I know that my playing days are getting numbered. I don't have, I'm not a young buck and have a million years left in my playing career. So it was one of those opportunities I knew that as it came around, it was kind of one of those, you would look back on it and probably regret it, not going and jumping at the opportunity to be a part of something new, of taking the sport to another level. And so decided to jump on board and I can't believe how legitimate it is. Paul and his brother have done such an incredible job of making professional lacrosse and taking it to that next level of getting it onto NBC and getting it into millions of homes and just showcasing the sport. I mean, the sport has never had a problem with getting people to love it once they see it. And so being able to bring that sport there and just the content that their team is constantly providing is awesome for the younger players and for people who are just now kind of starting to realize what lacrosse is all about.
Go ahead. You got a bunch of questions about that. Fire away, man. He's happy to chat with you about it.
So obviously right now for you guys, the season is a little bit postponed. And I kind of wanted to ask, what are some of the things that you're doing on your own to get ready for the season if you guys do hopefully play and kind of, see where that goes a little bit?
Yeah, so the one unique thing that I think is kind of that's in our cards right now, it's kind of helps lacrosse players is we're accustomed to like working out and having to be personally accountable for your own workouts. Because if you're not doing it, you're not doing it by yourself. You're going to show up to training camp and someone's going to beat you out. So if you're not kind of driving yourself and doing it on your own, then you're going to be missing out that next year. And so we're always kind of accustomed to this. It definitely is very tough not having a gym to go to or having to work out with. I've been super thankful I can still go back and work out with the DU trainer. So he's been my trainer for the past 7-8 years and helping me keep me in tip-top shape. But I've still been able to get some workouts for him. So trying to do workouts at home, trying to find an open cage to go shoot out, try to keep my stick as much as I can. But thankfully that drive isn't that hard to find just because, like I said, we're all used to it anyways. But having the season pushed back definitely sucks just because, more importantly, you just want to go out and play. It's just one of those things, you're getting bored of sitting around and watching reruns of football games on TV or basketball games and just want to go out and do it yourself and be with your teammates and building that camaraderie.
And a guy that you've played against for a long time in the MLL just came to the league this year, Rob Pannell is going to be your teammate. How does that kind of change the dynamic of your attack line this year?
Yeah, I think it will be. I think it'll be interesting, and I think now with potential shorter training camp, it's going to be even more important that me and him and our attack and offense are on the same page, and trying to kind of build that chemistry in other ways, like number 4. So we've been trying to get on Zoom calls. We've been trying to stay in contact as much as we can, just to sometimes talking lacrosse, sometimes not talking lacrosse, and just trying to get to know who that real person is, instead of just looking through their social media and trying to find out who someone is, which I think can be a struggle for these days. But Rob is an incredible talent. I think he's going to be known as, when he is done playing, which I don't see him being done for a long time, is I think he'll go down as one of the top 5 attackmen ever to play the game. So being able to play with him, I'm super excited about. Years past, we've kind of played the same position behind the goal and X, but I do think that there's a way to make it work with the both of us, and with Ryan Brown or with Chris Cloutier, another lefty in there. I think we can have a pretty dangerous 4-man attack that if you focus too much of your energy and attention on one person, there's going to be 2 or 3 guys right behind him that are going to be ready to kill you and to jump on that opportunity. So it definitely is going to bring a different challenge of kind of meshing into a different role, kind of like it was last year. But going back to my DU days of being able to kind of play a bunch of different positions, I feel like that's going to kind of help me out in the long run here.
Yeah, versatility is a great thing, isn't it? It really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've been teaching him that for years, and he's picked up on that too. So I want to ask you about a guy you played with last year, and hopefully you get it to play with again this year, Connor Busick. Have you talked to him? He's got the spot at Cornell now, man.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for him. When we all found out, we sent him a big, nice message, and I think he's going to be a great fit. I know that they kind of tabbed it just to be for the 2021 season, but I'd be shocked to see them not extend that for longer. Connor is he's the perfect professional player. He holds himself to high regards on and off the field, and to see what he's done already as a coach there at Cornell in just 2 years with the offense that he has, that kind of has helped bring Cornell back to the top of the talks of the lacrosse world. That I think he's going to be doing big, big things. And anytime you talk to him, he's an extremely passionate person about not only lacrosse, but Cornell lacrosse. I mean, he bleeds it. He bleeds the program. He went there. He battled for 4 years. His brother was a player there now. And I think he just loves the Big Red. And if you can find someone that bleeds those true colors for a school and let them be in charge, they're going to be in very good hands for a long time to come.
Yeah, that Jeff Teet's not bad either.
Oh, he's not. Yeah. I'm excited personally to watch him play at the next level. I'm hoping that he's able to figure out what he needs to do for college for next year. But when he is decided that it's time for him to take it to the professional game, both indoors and outdoors, I know I'm going to be one that's going to be making sure I'm recording those games to watch him play, because he's a one of a talent. He's one of a kind talent.
Yeah, I've had him a few times the last couple of years, and he keeps me on my toes like you attackmen do. I got to keep you look down for a second, you're missing something.
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah,
he's a fun one to play. As we wrap up, I know you're involved in the Denver community in a lot of different things. You obviously got City Lax. You mentioned that. What are some of the things aside from that that you're doing to continue to grow this great sport that we all love and help it get bigger and better than it already is in Colorado, Eric?
Yeah, so I work full-time for Denver City Lax. I've been with them for 7 years, growing the game at a grassroots level and providing the opportunity to play lacrosse by removing the financial barrier for our players and for our families. So offering educational enrichment opportunities as well through that. So that's definitely kept me busy. And then also in the summer times, as most lacrosse players do, I run a bunch of camps and clinics through an organization called Boomtown Lacrosse that was founded by Dylan Roy, who is also a DU grad and the Outlaws and Team Canada. Yeah. So he's a close friend of mine. And so our summer times are always packed with doing camps, tournaments, clinics, and getting in front of kids of teaching the game of lacrosse. But we take a little bit unique approach to it, as we're not a bunch of other places around here and camps do the whole, competitive type stuff. We try to make it just as a fun activity for kids to do. So you could be the best player on the team, you could be the worst player on the team, but you're still going to come to our camps and you're still going to learn a lot of lacrosse. But we're also going to have a ton of fun too. And I feel like that's one thing that we kind of pride ourselves on, is we're going to goof around, we're going to have a great time, because it's supposed to be summer camp and sports are supposed to be fun. So That's what I like to do in the summer times, as long as traveling every weekend and playing. So I still get my competitive fix, which is needed definitely for myself. And but that definitely keeps me busy, kind of those three things. And I love the lacrosse community. You can always find me around on Saturdays and Sundays watching youth lacrosse or high school lacrosse, or when we are able to watch college lacrosse, I'm usually up in the stands cheering as loud as I can for the powerhouse.
Right on. You got anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just, what are the Atlas looking to do this year, and how do you guys want to improve from last year going into the 2020 season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously your goal every year is to win a championship, and I think that's definitely on our mindset right now. I definitely think it's something that can be achieved, but we know that we have a lot of work to do to get there. Last year we did feel like by the end of the year we were kind of hitting our stride. We were the hottest team at the end of the year, and unfortunately for that last game that the Redwoods had against the Chrome, if they didn't beat them by 12 goals, we would have been in the playoffs if they only beat them by 10. So we felt like we could have made some damage if we were able to get into the playoffs, but no, we have to start stronger. At the start of the year, we weren't on the same page a lot, both offensively and defensively, and then it took us a little bit to kind of read with each other. So new coaching staff this year, which I'm super excited about, is Brent Rubior, who I've admired for the longest of times and loved the way he played the game, because he's such a cerebral player, kind of like myself, that I'm excited to learn from him and get coached by him and know that he can make sure the offense is doing what it needs to do. And just being a more consistent team this year, I think, is one big thing that we're going to be working on. But obviously it's one of those, professional sports. If you're not the team that wins it all at the end of the year, you kind of consider the season a failure. So going to be doing everything we can and making sure that we're the team hosting the trophy this year instead of someone else.
Definitely.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, of course, thank you for joining us today, Eric. We really appreciate your time. Good luck to you guys this season. We hope to see you on the field very soon. Thanks for joining us. It's been great talking to you. So
it's a thrill for him, man. I'm not going to lie.
Awesome. This is the first podcast I'm doing, so I'm pumped. This is I always love jumping on and talking lacrosse and kind of my journey. So I appreciate you guys for what you guys are doing for the sport, and love listening to your games, Ben.
Well, I appreciate that, Eric. It's fun watching you play. I'm glad we did this for a lot of reasons, but I didn't know that Villanova game meant so much to you guys. That's cool to hear.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
That's
big
neat.
Time. Yep.
That's great. Well, we're going to talk to Trevor Baptiste later, and anything I can zing him with? I know him well.
He's just a one-of-a-kind dude. He's just one of those people that you're just so thankful that you got to meet, and just he's a ball of energy that anytime you're around him, you're going to be smiling, you're going to be laughing, knowing you have a good time. But he also knows when it's time to get down to business, which is a huge thing I respect about him. Is he has fun when we need to have fun, but when it's time to get serious, he turns it up, and he's one of the best competitors I've ever been around.
Yeah, he's a fun guy. Did a lot of his games. I've done a ton of games in his career, and we're going to have him on and do the same thing here. So, Eric, as my son said,
awesome.
Thanks for this. This has been No Holding Back with Eric Law, the PLL Atlas, 5-time All-Star, and appreciate your time, Eric. We wish you the best, and hopefully you guys, like Luke said, get going this year.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care and stay healthy.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.